Welcome everybody to the Tucson Astrologers Guild Friday night free discussion meeting by Zoom. We're excited to see all of you. It's February 11th, 2022. All right, and members are eligible to receive the link to all of our recordings. Being able to access video and our audio recordings of our speakers is one of the perks of being a member. And getting $5 off the gate, it's another perk, or being able to come to but anybody can come to our free discussion meeting. And I'm glad that a lot of people have signed up. Hello, Carolyn. We're just getting started. I'm going to announce we are opening up our used book sale again. Nika's finally ready to take orders. So if you see any books on the PDF on our website on our page, used books for sale, if you see any books there that you'd like to buy, just shoot me an email and I will forward that on to Anika and we'll get those books to you. We'll arrange to have them sent to you or a way for you to pick them up. A lot of work has gone into that project, so we hope yes, that we can get these books moving. Frank and Tom and myself and Susie and now Anika, you know, we've put a lot of time into this. Okay, we have just a couple of the Llewellyn pocket planners still in stock. I think Frank, you have a couple, I have one. They're on sale now for $8 if anybody wants a Llewellyn pocket planner for 2022. Tomorrow, we'll offer a Zoom at 1 p.m. February 12th, in which Mary Jo Weavers will be talking the fundamentals about Mercury. So come find out how Mercury works in your chart. People have until 11 a.m. tomorrow to register for that. Mary Jo puts out a blog called Capricorn Rising. Okay, does anybody here tonight that would like to announce a class? Anybody here want to tell us about what Astrology Arizona is doing? I know one of our past members who was going to be on tonight wanted people to know she's offering a beginning dowsing class tomorrow here in Tucson, an in-person dowsing class. And if you emailed me, I'd send you the link for that. It's 4ofwands tucson.com/events-1. But anyway, Kata is just wanted to let us know that she's offering that in-person class about dowsing tomorrow. And Lynn Ewing, one of our members, is always offering a class. Look at astrologicaldetails.com. Anybody else here tonight want to announce a class? Or...
Can I announce what the ASC and Astrological Society of Connecticut is doing for next week? It's a lecture. Okay, it's, hold on, let me go back here. 7 o'clock, and that's Eastern time, so that would be 5 our time. Judith Hill will speak on Saturn's medical transits. And the email, I'm sorry.
You want to put it in the chat? You want to put that in the chat?
Yeah, I can put it in the chat. Yeah, thanks.
And that what group was that, Diana?
Astrological Society of Connecticut. Janet Booth is a member there.
Right. I think
yeah, she spoke at TAG. I think Vertex. She spoke on the Vertex.
If any of you here astrologers that you'd like us to invite to speak, just let me know. Email me, tell me somebody you'd like to hear, or a topic that you'd like to hear more about. And we're always open to suggestions.
Yeah, isn't Janet going to speak pretty soon?
Oh, yeah. Well, next month. Right. Thank you.
Yes,
Next month.
right.
Next month. That would be March 11 and 12. We have on the 11th, Friday the 11th, Maurice Fernandez is going to be on our Zoom talking about Jupiter and Neptune. Neptune is one of his specialties, with that Jupiter-Neptune conjunction coming up. And he's again, wanting to let everybody know that OPA, the Organization of Professional Astrologers, will be meeting here in Tucson at the end of April, beginning of May, in an in-person event here in Tucson, OPA. And Maurice heads that organization up. So he'll be speaking to us on March 11. And then March 12th, we're going to have Janet Booth, and she will be talking about declination and out of bounds planets. So look forward to emails about that. I do have it. We do have that sneak peek what's coming up PDF on our website, 2022 events, or events-2022. If you want to go just check out who's coming. I have it as far out as April. Tara Green will be our April's Saturday speaker. So if you missed anything that was just said in the chat, of course, you can click on chat and bring that up again. Any other announcements that I should be making? Dale, are you offering any classes or?
I'm not offering any classes, but I've been writing a lot and sending emails, like sent some to you, Gail, and to Tom, and anybody
Yes.
who wants to correspond with me. It's chironguy@pacinfo.com. But I've got things on the chart of Canada, astrocartography of Canada and Ottawa, Trudeau's Chiron return, and lots of other very timely things. So if anybody just wants to, either just I can give you chart information or my take on things, or we can just communicate back and forth that way, just as we can communicate this evening with each other.
Yeah, it's great. All the information you're compiling. I really appreciated all the information about the Trudeau's Chiron return, and of course all this information about the convoy that was crossing Canada. Charts of Canada, charts of yeah. There's a lot to keep track of, and we have this extra power. We have charts. Okay, so everybody's already muted, but if you want to say something in the discussion, to talk about one of the topics, just raise your hand. If you can't figure it, there's a little way to do that. Reactions down at the bottom of your screen, you'll see reactions. You can raise your hand if you want to talk about something. I have a short list of topics we might discuss. I can put them up just for briefly. I'm going to give everybody a chance to talk on share on each topic. So we'll decide upon the topic and go around. Everybody can share on it that wants to. If that topic doesn't appeal to you, raise your hand and suggest another one. Anybody can bring up a topic anytime they want to. But I'm hoping that people will, since we're going around the room, limit their sharing to 3 to 5 minutes at most, and then so that we can allow other people to share, and maybe not just go back and forth, but let's go around the room. and let everybody share. And when we're done about one topic, we'll go on to the next. I've also got some charts that I can put up, and maybe Dale can always suggest a chart for me to put up if we want to share about it. But let me put up this short list of topics, and maybe we can pick one of them. There it is. So not that one. No, what am I doing? That was the try again. Couldn't figure out what I was sharing here. There's what I wanted. Is that what I want? No. There it is. There's some of the things that I thought we might be able to talk about. I have a Mercury retrograde story that I'm sure there's others of us that do too. This Mercury retrograde conjunct Pluto too. This has been interesting. We can talk about the Pluto return to the US Pluto, that Neptune square the US Mars and opposing the US Neptune, scattered square Uranus. So it's currently all the planets are direct. We won't go into asteroids, but all the planets are direct, and that some people notice that. Seems like forward motions happening. Maybe you've had eclipses that have impacted your life. What got this brought up this idea of doing a free discussion meeting was last month. People started talking about language that we use, describing a transit as hitting a planet or something. And we thought hitting it doesn't feel very good to describe what happens when a transit occurs over. So anyway, that could be discussed more. Which house system do you use? That's always interesting. How many of you use dwarf planets? Or what any other topic you might like to talk about? Okay. Somebody raise their hand. Who would like to start a discussion about one of those topics or anything else on your mind? Go ahead, Kathleen.
No, you're asking me?
You're unmuted. You anybody else? Okay, somebody jump in. How about a Mercury retrograde story?
I've got an old one.
Okay. Oh, Tal. Go ahead, Diana.
Yeah,
and
I have
then
an old
Tal.
one. I had to get a cell phone and I knew it was Mercury retrograde. And I'm like, well, read the fine print, yada, yada. So everything was fine. And then I got the bill. And then I got another bill. And I got a bill for 2 different lines for 2 phones. And I only had 1 phone. So I thought that was, I got a laugh out of that one. And I just written it out. Yeah.
Let me see. Tal's next. Tal, what was your unmute yourself?
Hi, I just wanted to say hello, and I'm new to the group and looking forward to sharing and learning and growing. And I just took in a tiny little 11-week-old pup, so I'm a little bit discombobulated. So she's a little sad, and that's all I know so far. So I'm glad to be with all of you on this. I find the map of astrology just fabulous. My background is Oriental medicine. I'm a licensed acupuncturist and energy healer here in Tucson. So just wanted to greet everybody, say hello.
Thank you, Tal. That was one of the things that we always used to do when we were in person, go around the room and everybody introduce themselves. Carolyn, you want to introduce yourself and to say something on the topic? You're muted, by the way. Unmute yourself.
My name is Carolyn, and I just want to welcome Tal And I just remembered a Mercury retrograde thing I'm trying to block out. That just happened to me. I dropped my iPad and the screen broke, and I had one of these, you know, you pay $30 and you have the tempered glass for the life of the thing, because I'd broken it before. Took it in right before the Mercury, right during the shadow period, pre-shadow period. And because of supplies being short, you know, they didn't have the screen. So I took it home and waited a week, and they brought it back in, and they thought they fixed it. And I took it home, and it kept, every 2.5 to 3 minutes, almost exactly, it would die. And it never did that before. So they were actually quite great. I took it back in, and they took ownership for the problem. And they said, well, we're going to try to fix it, because they also fix things. And so they had it, I don't know, 10 days. And, you know, meanwhile, I realized how much I use it, because I was really missing it. And because I have my astrology app on there. I had to get it on my phone, and to look at the charts, so small on your phone compared to the iPad and all of that. So I was really missing it. So it turns out they couldn't fix it. This is all during the retrograde. They said, we're going to get you a new one. New meaning the same one. This was about 5 years old. And so I thought, there's something's too good to be true that they're actually going to replace it. You know, I thought, anyway. So that was another 2 weeks. And we're at the tail end of the retrograde now. And I finally got the new one, the new used, I'm sure it was refurbished. And I think it was about the 8th time I'd gone to the store. Finally, we were coming back to get it. And then they realized they hadn't put the tempered glass on again, and they didn't have it in stock. So I thought at this point, I'm just going to take it. I can't stay any longer. And it works fine. You know, I always know about not buying new things, getting new things during retrograde electronics. I was really leery about getting a new used iPad, but the battery's not great. So I know it was used. But anyway, I got it back. But that was my whole fiasco with it. And I got it back right as Mercury was going stationary direct. And so far, it's okay. It's not a new one, it's used, but at least it works. And I have to keep it plugged in. The battery's really bad. But anyway, that was my story.
That's great, Carolyn. Thank you.
During a pre-shadow, you know, retrograde, and then working into the shadow. It was like clockwork. So, unfortunately, but it came out okay.
And Carolyn, you're here in Tucson, right?
I'm here in Tucson. Yes.
Okay. It's Kathleen. You had
A similar story. My phone stopped working on January 4th, and I have this guarantee, you know, warranty on it and all that. And trying to reach them just was like trying to get Verizon was a nightmare, because they would respond and text on my phone that wasn't working. You would call them and they were sending you a message. And of course I couldn't read it. So that went on for about 3 days. And in the interim, this is Mercury retrograde with the Pluto. I go on Facebook, and I got a Facebook from my cousin about his brother dying that I grew up with. We all grew up together. Now, to get information about somebody dying on Facebook is not part of my life experience before this. You know, you get news about the actors, but not your relatives. But I didn't have a phone. I couldn't call anybody, you know, so I put it on, I emailed everybody my new phone. Don't call me on this number. I have another number. And I'll make a long story. It took about at least 3 weeks to get my phone. What happened is they finally sent me a new phone. They said they were sending it the next day. It didn't come for 5 days. Somewhere it got lost. Then when I finally got it, I had to go back to Verizon 2 or 3 times to make appointments to get in there to see them. So now the phone is working. It took forever. And then, you know, what you do from that, I got with the appreciation of the phone is like, thank God I had a secondhand one that I keep. I can't, you know, I can't use it outside the house. I could, as long as it's plugged in, I could use it. But if I didn't have that, I have a landline, but still I didn't have any contacts. That was my thing. And I want a new phone. Am I getting my contacts? Am I getting my contacts? That's all I wanted to know. And then some of them were telling me, no, you're not going to get them again. And So it was an experience of what I got from retrograde and the experience of the world that we're living in, that people just say things and really don't know, and they just give you an answer. And they just, you know, the best is Verizon 3 times, and they keep sending me and I tell them, you can't text me, I can't see it. The screen is black, I can't, you know. But, and then they would call me, they said they were calling me too. So this is, you know, well, and I couldn't get that either afterwards, you know, when they went on that they showed me the whole list of things. So this is, how do you say, the world we're living in, that even with the retrogrades, that the interconnection of communication is a major breakdown. That's all I can say. It's experience, and not what I only experienced, but the crossover between Verizon with the store with Verizon, the Verizon with the person who was sending the thing. It was one big funny mix-up, and having that with everything else going on. And if I wanted to buy a new phone, you couldn't get one because there were none in stock. They were all, they would give you dates, like if you want to buy a dishwasher or a washing machine, they give you dates now. You might receive it in a month. This is what this was like, it was talk about another dimension. That's like something you had no idea that this could happen. So yeah.
Welcome to the new normal, right? The new normal, an
The new-
introduction.
Yeah. Years ago, your phone broke, you went into Verizon, and in 2 days you had it fixed. This was never going to happen again. The new world. My thing is buy another phone. That's I might be doing, keeping another one around because of the supply. There's no supply. That, you know, certain phones. Of course, the iPhone for $1,000 you could have bought, but nothing else.
All right. Yeah. Another person's story. Anybody more? Any more? Yes, Jane. Jane R.
Yeah, hi. My company's been using statewide data system that was built in the 1990s. So we decided to come into the modern age, and we spent 5 years and millions of dollars building a whole new system. And clearly there's no astrologer on staff for upper management, because the day they flipped the switch was the day Mercury stationed retrograde in Aquarius. So needless to say, anything that could go wrong with the system did go wrong. And it was months and months and months before they fixed it. And it's sort of running now, which is good. It's been a year. But the good thing that happened is that people had to talk with each other. Instead of using the computer for everything, it was so frustrating, but we had to actually get up off our desks or pick up the phone and call someone on the telephone because nothing else was working. So I kind of like that part of it. I just had to laugh. I just had to keep a good sense of humor, and, you know, could have picked a better day to flip the switch.
Interesting. Somebody else. And when you come on, I know Jane, for Tal's benefit, Jane R lives in Flagstaff. So not everybody here tonight is living in Tucson. That's why I just thought I'd mention that for the latecomers. Anybody else got a Mercury retrograde story?
I have one that's not my own. It's all of ours.
Okay.
As Susie pointed out, we get the 3 Mercury retrogrades this year that all start off in air and then end up in Earth.
Mhm.
And so I think we can see from this first one, we start off with things that are supposed to work in theoretically, but then we end up with what is going on in reality. And particularly with this one, with the Mercury dancing around Pluto, you know, I was amused by, you know, Trudeau and other people saying, oh, there's nothing happening. Oh, it's just the radical fringe. And, you know, eventually the reality sets in here at the very end. And, you know, obviously there's still a lot going on. I don't want to get off on that. But I think it's going to be an interesting year where we move from things that are in either in the big picture or in our own lives, where it's like, well, this should work theoretically. It makes sense. And probably some things that are going to be like, whoa, I guess that's not working after all.
Good point. Good point. Anyone else about Mercury retrograde? Of course, as being the person in charge of communications for the Tucson Astrologers Guild, I sometimes find it frustrating when I send an email out and I don't get a reply to them, to the emails I sent out. And a week will go by, another week, and I'll be trying to figure out, now let me see if I can go back and find the email I sent to that person, or where they sent me an email, and how we can finish this conversation, get some resolution to whatever, whether it's which link did you want to which Zoom, about membership, whatever. But the one funny experience I had that I left me shaking my head was this client that she couldn't, the PayPal wouldn't let her send my fee to me by directly to my email address that I gave her. I don't know why. Other people send money through PayPal to my personal email address, but it told her to send. It got redirected her to the website, so she made a donation to the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School in order to pay my fee. And then I had to sort that all out. Fortunately, I do know the managing director of the school, so we did get that sorted out. But I thought that it was just when I emailed Alwyn about it, I said we have to laugh about this Mercury retrograde. That's all we can do sometimes. It's either laugh or grin and bear it. Yes. Okay, let me see. Anybody see? I had a whole list of topics up there. That thing about the Pluto and Mercury, somebody alluded to this period of time. I've listened to an AFAN discussion about out of bounds yesterday, and some other discussions here and there through the week. And somebody talked about when the caterpillar is in the cocoon stage before it becomes the butterfly, and it really totally melts. I mean, when they're in the cocoon, I mean, things have to be totally rearranged. All those cells get rearranged totally. I mean, it melts inside the cocoon. And are we in that place? Are we in that place of melting inside the cocoon of this reality we've thought was real for how many years? But here at Pluto, returning to the US, Pluto, is this one of the signs that we are all, especially in this country, are in the process of melting into a new reality. Anybody want to talk about the Pluto return US chart? Or Pluto in their chart? Go ahead, Frank.
I looked into it a little bit, well, more than a little bit, actually. And I had mentioned it to Gail, which was part of the reason I think she had it on the list of items there. I got quite intrigued by asteroids. There's a guy who does asteroid astrology. He has a website. Alex Miller is his name, and it's just alexasteroidastrology.com. And he sends out these newsletters whenever there's anything interesting happening in the news. And it's amazing how asteroids with names that connect to human beings or events or particular locations, cities or countries or something like that, they just show up all the time when you have these big events. So he looked at the USA Pluto return. And it's interesting because everybody goes, oh, Pluto returned first time in 250 years. And Pluto was all about, power and violence and destruction and transformation and rebirth. Well, all of that's true, but it doesn't really focus on how astrology is functioning when you do a return chart. We're all very familiar with a solar return chart. And that's only for 1 year. But the moment that the sun hits its natal spot, then that particular chart with all the other planets seems to indicate a lot about what's going to happen in the future for that individual person. So shouldn't we also look at Pluto return chart in that same sense of it indicating what's likely to be happening? So he took this premise and he looked at a whole bunch of asteroids that happen to make all kinds of fascinating connections. He recorded, or in the newsletter, he had a particular time and date, February 20th, 8:49 a.m. in Washington, D.C. In Solar Fire, when you put in Washington, it brings up a bunch of other stuff like hospitals and airports, but but it had one for the Washington Monument, which I guess is as good a place as any for central Washington, D.C. But anyway, I double checked the math on that. And if you look at the chart analysis page in Solar Fire, you can get a readout of planet position for that chart in that time in degrees, minutes, and seconds. And for the USA Sibley chart, July 4th, 5:10 p.m. in Philadelphia, it's like 27 degrees, 32 minutes, and 57 seconds. And that matches exactly with this time of February 20th, 11:49 a.m., Washington, D.C. So I figure, well, that's probably a pretty decent chart to use. Oh, thank you, Gail. I have that chart right here, but you put it up on the screen. Anyway, there's a bunch of other stuff going on in addition to Pluto. We should talk about, but I don't want to go on for 15 minutes. So I'm not going to talk about what the actual Pluto conjunct Pluto means. There's other stuff going on in the chart. And not all of it is very bad. When Alex Asteroid Astrology started digging into it, he came up with all these asteroids that seem to be very negative. One's named Chaos and Nemesis, and how they're, aspecting the USA's natal chart, sun or moon or Venus and things like that. But if you look at the other planets, there's a bunch of interesting stuff going on. The natal Venus is closely trine the return chart sun. In both charts, you've got sun trine Jupiter and sun trine Jupiter. The one for the natal Jupiter to the return sun is a little big. It's like 3 degrees, almost 4. But still, the fact that you have these matching aspects is intriguing. And the Venus, the Mercury of the return chart is right on the south node, conjunct south node, and opposed north node of the natal chart, the Sibley chart. Also, interestingly enough,
So, Frank, what was the date for that Pluto return chart that you're doing?
February 20th, 2022.
February 20th
Yeah,
of 2022. What time?
11:49 a.m.
And you have it for Washington, D.C., huh?
Correct. Anyway, the point that I'm getting at, to open up for discussion and comments, I don't want to give a long analysis myself, is there's an awful lot going on. Of course, that's sort of like a duh, what do you expect thing when we've got the whole Trump, telling everybody that 2020 election was stolen, and that Biden isn't really the president, and you've got convoys in Ottawa, and you've got all the big discussion about Facebook and Google, taking control of everybody's life, and it just goes on and on. We're really at quite an interesting time here in the United States. So it's kind of appropriate that we have a Pluto return, and then we have all this other stuff going on. So you can read this in several different ways. If you want to read doom and gloom, there's enough negative aspects. But if you look at a bunch of the positive aspects, you could just say, oh, well, we're going through a challenging time, but it's going to turn out really well several years from now. Arguments made for both. So I would be very interested in what astrologers that have studied a lot more historical stuff would have to say about this, like Dale and Tom in particular. So anyway, I've probably talked past my 5-minute limit. Way.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank. Thank you for this. We can come back around to you. Anybody want to talk to this Pluto return? Anybody want to say anything about this chart? I can't see your hands up because I'm seeing. Just unmute yourself and say something.
Yeah, the 20th happens to be in the numerology. They're talking about the 2222. I don't know if anybody else has gotten into this, but it's quite active in the numerology and other areas. Okay, and that the 2 has to do with two people, but the connection of people really getting together. So there was the February 2nd, 2022, and now the next one is going to be February 20th, and of course February 22nd. And that it's supposed to be higher stuff coming through. That's what they're looking at. It's a very 2 is a very high level of existence. So that's on the good side, Frank. Talking on the good side.
Yeah.
The
yeah,
22 is a master number.
Then
Yes.
the Jupiter Pisces is the inflation. And by the time that gets over, that's more 2-3 years. It could be the corona too. But the inflation is, Jupiter and Neptune does a lot of stuff. And you're feeling the inflation, and everybody's getting bills more. Everything is $10 more, $15 more, for $40. I mean, I get all these notices. I said, we know. They want to raise. They have to raise their prices because of everything's going up. So it's just part of the. You call it the meltdown. I like the word transition, or transformation that we're all going through. And we've lived through all the hard times in our lives. So it's not the first. I lived through 9/11. So, and I was there. So, and it didn't feel good for a long time either. And even when it did pass, or supposedly passed, the shadow of it is still there. And it's still, so we're all going to remember this in our psyches. Everybody's going to remember what they, who was locked up for how long, all these good stories and the sad stories. So, and that's part of, for me, the appreciation of America, that we took for granted everything. We took the food, the trucks getting our food to the stores, all this, getting a phone automatically. We all took it for granted. So that's that, and this just shifted everything. So that's where I'm in very high level of gratitude of everything I have, and and for everyone else, even having this astrology. Thank God it's part of my life. I've always said that. We're blessed.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathleen. That's always a good thing to remember.
That's right.
What we can be grateful for, instead of just what isn't right. Think about what is.
I think about that. I think about it all the time. Every time I go to the store and it's not on the shelf, and I say, "Who would ever think this would happen in America?" This is a little nonsense, but what they told me, they couldn't get the phone, couldn't get my dishwasher, and I'm saying, this is making us wake up to be thankful for whatever whatever we have from now on.
Mhm.
That's my feeling. Even if it is Corona or whatever else we get, you know. So that's where I'm at. Signing off.
It's in, yeah, okay. And somebody, of course, now has been talking about one of the, Daniel Giamario is talking about, and we have in the natal chart of the US, you have the Pluto opposing, or Mercury opposing Pluto. And so really, when you think about this Pluto transit coming back to its original position, of course, it was opposing, it started, you could have said that this Pluto return actually started with as Pluto opposed the Mercury. And that was in March of 2020. That's when, so you could say that that's when the Pluto return actually started, which would make a lot of sense. And it keeps going for the rest of this year for sure. But then even then it won't be very far out of orb of the natal position. And so if we give it a couple of years on either side of its natal position, I don't think we'd be too far off base. Anybody else want to say something? Anybody raising your hand? Just unmute yourself.
Well,
Yes,
you
Tal.
probably know I've
Tal.
got a lot
Oh,
to say here.
okay, Dale.
I'm sorry, am I
Dale.
interrupting somebody?
No, go ahead. I just Tal put up her hand, but no, you go ahead, Dale. You go ahead and then Tal.
Why don't you have Tal go ahead? I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Hi. Today I listened to a YouTube from Astrology Hub with Rick Levine, who I think is brilliant and very long-winded at the same time. And he was talking, and I'm not in any way going to interpret anything that he said, but he was talking about from his calculations that the Pluto return of the United States isn't really going to happen 2022, but because of the axis and the tilts and the losing degrees every year, that actually it will be February 2024 for Pluto return. So I don't know if any of you have heard that or in any way, think that might be something to also put in perspective.
Right, there's declinations involved or different charts too. I mean, people use different charts for the United States, like Dale uses a slightly different chart for the United States, but I don't know if that changes the position. Go ahead, Dale. You were going to talk about
the basic story of the chart of the United States is it's changed as we get more information. So our most senior astrologers used to use a chart of Gemini rising, then came forward to a chart of Sagittarius rising, either the Dane-Rudger chart that Daniel Giamario prefers, or the so-called Sibley chart. But what happened, let's see if I can reach over and get this book. Well, I don't know whether this is showing up here, or it doesn't matter. But anyway, I'll just tell you, it's called American Histrology by Ronald W. Howland. And I've mentioned this book to some TAG people in the past. And basically what happened is when we had the bicentennial in 1976, there was an interest, a renewed interest in the Declaration of Independence. So they dug out the notes of the Declaration of Independence, and when did they decide, when did they make the decision that, yes, we are unanimous and we are declaring this. And it was in the morning of July 4th of 1776. Howland chose a time of late mutable Virgo rising, and I have chosen a time of 11:18 or 11:19, same chart, AM local time on that date. And part of the reason why I did that is because it was definitely historically, unlike the chart that Daniel uses or the chart that Frank referenced here, this is historically more accurate. And I'm got a Virgo midheaven, so I like to get things, the details right. And I find that this chart fits. And then in terms of definitely, I have far more in agreement with my fellow astrologers like Frank and Daniel and others than differences. But one of the things that about this is where is Pluto going to return? And that's going to be, in some ways, the events that are unfolding as we speak are going to help us know, well, which chart does work the best, or maybe we'll see, well, one chart works in one way and one way in the other, because I don't know whether people know what's going on right now today in Canada. That's unprecedented. There are
Dale, what time was that chart for? I'm going to bring it up.
11:18 a.m. local mean time, July 4,
Okay.
1776,
Yeah.
Philadelphia.
Just gonna. Right, I was just rectifying.
Oh, well, okay. Well, thank you for that.
the
So
chart.
anyway, there's very, very big news. I mean, we're talking about history-making news that's going on up in Canada. People have been donating to the truckers, and the Canadian government has frozen all the donations, and they are declaring all of these thousands of truckers as you know, that they are illegal, that this is, you know, law breaking and so forth. And meanwhile, there are truckers coming from the United States, many truckers coming from Alaska and basically to all border crossings, including the peace crossing there. And so it's almost like there's so much happening as we speak. And talk about supply chain. If we're talking about the truckers in the United States and the truckers in Canada, if you think that the shelves have been bare before, you ain't seen nothing yet, people. This is big, and it's major, and it is as we speak. So I wanted to not take too much time, but I wanted to basically put out the news that it's happening right now. And there's also going to be a gathering in March 5th and somewhere in Southern California with the plan that the truckers are going to drive from LA and go across the country towards Washington, DC. And in terms of what you referenced, Frank, in terms of Trump people scoffing at, you know, the validity of the election, regardless of who won or who didn't win, what we have in common with both these elections is, if we go back to the Bush versus Gore election, Mercury was retrograde at the election time. We come forward to the Biden versus Trump election, Mercury's retrograde. So no matter who actually won, there's going to be a dispute of the election that's here. And, you know, that one was not as much of a problem because it wasn't happening coinciding with the Pluto return. But this is basically, as Daniel pointed out, and I very much agree, it's not just the Pluto return, it's the Pluto opposite to Mercury, because Pluto Mercury aspects, I have the opposition myself, is about either truth or the subversion or hiding of the truth. And this goes all the way back to the fact that George Washington was a master spy. And so in other words, what's real news and what's fake news? And it's basically like a split. There are people now in this country who are basically saying, no, what you're saying is not true. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. And again, I'm, you know, rather than to make this into a political thing, it's just to point out the fact that the country is split right down the middle about what is true and what's going on. So I just wanted to put that into the mix, and I hope I haven't taken too much time.
No, this is great. I mean, we do have Mercury conjunct Pluto tonight. I mean, Mercury is right. Transiting Mercury is conjunct this Pluto, and there's a lot of stuff going on in the world that, I mean, Mercury in one way, association with Gemini or the third house, that some the trucker, it's very appropriate for truckers. Communication, the transportation, I think, is a part of this, very much a part of this story with all these truckers and Mercury transiting over Pluto now direct, you know, and it's really, it started gathering energy as soon as Mercury went direct. And now it's right there with Pluto, and we're going. They're even. Did you mention the convoy up in Alaska, Dale?
The convoy is coming to the border with Canada. There's, as we know, there are multiple borders between Alaska and Canada, and there are trucks coming from the USA side towards the Canadian border. And then there's also Canadian trucks that are massed at the border in Montana, near Sweetgrass, Coots on the Canadian side. And if anyone really wants to know what's going on here in terms of the news, both the corporate Canadian news and the US news is not telling the truth about what's happening on the ground. There are multiple individuals who are going out in the streets and actually photographing and getting interviews and proving that the overwhelming majority of here are peaceful, wholesome, very racially and otherwise diverse sort of people. And there is this sort of, the corporate news is not telling the real story. And
well, we do have, we noticed that, I'm sorry.
No, please.
I mean, the fact that Neptune, whichever chart, I've been going back and forth between the two different versions of the US chart. Here we have the one that was for 11:18 a.m. Here we have the one that is the Sibley chart. But either way, you have this transiting Neptune is opposing the natal Neptune in the US chart. And we have Jupiter coming up to it. There is so much, the news media is it can be so confusing to people, just disturbing. so much, lies and confiscation and accusation and pointing the finger at the other person. It's hard for the public to really know what is happening unless you're on the ground and you've got reliable reports. Somebody else want to comment about the Pluto return, the Mercury conjunct Pluto? Unmute yourself, weigh in.
Gail, let me just say one thing.
Sure.
It's really not that important, but when I read there's a really good Pluto return history that was written. It first was published, I think, in Mountain Astrologer by Ray Grasse. And he did a pretty thorough job of examining the Pluto returns for England and for Rome. And basically, they're all pretty bad, but countries really do not get decimated until their second Pluto return. It was bad enough with Pluto's first return in that Rome got invaded and sacked, but it still kept on going. And things were so bad in Rome that people welcomed, I forget if it was the Huns, I can't remember which group sacked Rome, but the citizens of Rome by that time were kind of grateful they got invaded because their government was so corrupt by that point that they actually welcomed the invaders. So anyway, generally Pluto returns are not, even if you have good aspects, as Frank mentioned, we have some decent aspects to counteract the Pluto return of the US. It's still going to be devastating. And I was really kind of taken by Rick Levine's statement regarding that Pluto return might be 2024. Because my God, when you look at what's happening now, you go, well, if it's this bad now, is it going to get worse come 2024? I really think we have yeah, as Dale mentioned and Gail both, we've been feeling this Pluto return for, a good several years now. And I think even after it does have the exact conjunction, we're still going to feel it for quite a number of years, especially, I think I mentioned when Neptune goes into Aries, that's when you're going to see real inflation. Right now, we're having real inflation, and it came on earlier than expected, but the real difficult inflation will not be until that Neptune transits into Aries. So, because whenever Neptune goes into a fire sign, that's when you see historically huge hyperinflation. And that applies to the US in the past, like in the late 70s, and in other countries like Germany during Weimar, where it required a wheelbarrow full of Deutschmarks to buy a loaf of bread, and even then it didn't. Eventually the dollar, with the starting of our with the starting of our currency during the Revolutionary War, eventually that required $1 trillion to buy a loaf of bread, and that's what happened in Weimar, Germany. So anyway, I'm sorry I'm rambling, but I just wanted to mention, usually it's the second Pluto returns that's what really takes a country down. Yeah.
I don't know if we'll get that far. That's another 246 years. I don't know if we'll make it that far. Maybe Rome was in such a place in history that they lasted through the second Pluto return, but we're in such a speeded up time. Jane had her hand up. Jane
let me just mention one last thing. Because England's had 3, England had the really difficult situation of having the plague, but what the good news is, the Renaissance did happen after that Pluto return. So it was like the caterpillar becoming the butterfly in the case of England. So, maybe we could pull ourselves out of this tailspin. I don't know. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Jane, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, thanks. This is a great discussion. I appreciate it. And Tom, I'm going to say again how much I really, really love the talk that you gave. I watched it 3 times. It was really good. Just really, you hit a lot of points that made me think and made me feel open. And everybody here tonight with their sharing is really stimulating my intellect. I'm going to offer a different perspective just because I'm going to be Pollyanna for a minute. And please know, I speak this from the perspective of going to 3 banks to finally get a roll of quarters after searching for a week, because we cannot find quarters in this town. The grocery stores don't have them and the banks don't have them. So life is tough in some ways. But what I'm seeing with me and my workforce is that humanity is changing because of what we're going through. We are not the same people, and we are not handling things the same way. And I sit next to a woman that, because of this virus, if that's what you want to call it, this change, she lost, in the same week she lost her daughter, her adult daughter. She lost a sister that was 7 months pregnant. She lost a brother, and she lost an uncle. And I am seeing this kind of grief, this kind of major shift in so many of my employees. I wish it was just one, but it's so many people I can't even count anymore. I keep getting invites to funerals on email, as Kathleen said. It's like, geez, another one? My God, who's died now? But this is changing people. This is changing. I can't supervise a workforce the same way as I used to. When I know this woman next to me has just losing her daughter alone, that's a lot. That's huge. But people are coming in every day and they're trying to work with all these losses and can't get the damn quarters just so I can wash my clothes at the laundromat. It's really frustrating. And I hear what you're saying about inflation. It's I'm feeling that, and I'm sensing that's coming too. But I think how we treat each other is just so important right now. And I'm seeing more people now more than ever are looking at something deeper in their lives. They're looking around and saying, can't keep doing what I'm doing. It's not working. So they're becoming more and more interested in meditation and astrology and just more metaphysical things beyond their normal daily life. And I feel like that's where the hope is right now, that we're not going to go forward business as usual. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. All right, definitely. Somebody else, raise your hand. Somebody else like to weigh in on this? That little icon is really handy. Raise your hand. Somebody in the AFAN meeting yesterday mentioned how they were talking about the out of bounds planets, and Venus and Mars are both just slightly out of bounds in the US chart, and so is Pluto. Maybe we can ask, we'll have to talk to Janet, ask her about that, but that's interesting that those are out of bounds. We think of Venus, Mars, that Mars in square to Neptune, I mean, in the natal chart, and now being aspected. One thing I didn't put on the topics was this idea that Venus rose heliacally in Capricorn. That means she, toward the end of her retrograde cycle, she rose before the sun in Capricorn. And the ancient people used to talk about that as the time to go to war. And we know that the war drums are definitely being pounded with this Ukraine and Russian thing. Anybody want to talk about that? What's happening with that? We have Mars and Venus. They're going to be hanging out together for a long time. They're going to cross Pluto, go through Aquarius, and all the way into the beginning of Pisces together. Would anybody like to say anything about that transit, about out of bounds, about the squares? We can see anybody?
I just had a thought about Mars and Venus being close together and conjuncting Pluto. When I was looking at the precise times for the Pluto return, I noticed that when they were getting close to Pluto, Mars and Venus are almost exactly conjunct. And when they get there, the faster one, I think at that point, is Mars, and it passes the conjunction exact by 9 minutes, just when Venus is applying to the conjunction by 9 minutes. So they're very, very close to being exactly conjunct, and they're bracketing Pluto at exactly the same time. I just thought, well, that's a real significant degree. We ought to look up in Sabian symbols and see what that is. I believe it would be the 29th degree, because at that point, Pluto is about 28 degrees. Just going from 27 to 28, this will happen in March. Looking at it specifically because my Jupiter in my natal chart is 2809. So for a couple of days there, I'm going to have Pluto, Venus, and Mars all conjuncting my Jupiter, plus or minus 10 minutes. But beyond what it means in my chart, what does it mean in general in the world, to have this intense conjunction of Mars, Venus, and Pluto?
And there it is on March 2nd. We have them all in the 27 degrees.
Yeah.
And that's just a few days after we had this conjunction of the moon, Venus, Vesta, and Mars of 24, almost moon coming into that conjunction. That's quite a gang.
Yeah, yeah.
And so there's the idea that the consumer, I mean, there so much, this wars are always about consumerism, about somebody doesn't want somebody to get rich. They want to get rich off. Anyway, there's a lot of the Venus and the Mars going to war about things like who's going to get the gas, who's getting the gas. And this is trining the US Neptune. Just some.
Gail, could you explain about who's getting the gas in terms of Russian, Ukrainian situation?
Well, that I was just listening a little bit to the news, and listening to this, there's always there's what they say is the reason for this amassing strength, military strength around. It was about keeping Ukraine from, but there's so much about the Nord Stream 2. Russia supplying gas to Europe, specifically Germany, and the U.S. would prefer that Europe bought its gas from the U.S. or its preferred members like Qatar. The U.S. is offering the gas, liquid gas from Qatar, as opposed to wanting Europe to get the gas from Russia. And so I'm thinking that this Venus and Mars can give us some, it's kind of interesting in the way that these two are. Now I've pulled up the Sibley chart with this Venus and Mars. I think it's interesting about the Venus and Mars, because Venus is about the luxuries we want, or what we want, and Mars is going to help us get it, right?
Yeah, thank you for bringing up. I think Daniel Giamario also brought up that in Mesoamerica, that Venus heliacal rising is when they would go to war. And we don't think of Venus as being a planet of war, but obviously it is a planet of war for them.
In the morning sky, it's
Yes,
the warrior goddess.
Yes.
The evening sky is the mellow version of the goddess, but in the morning sky, this is the warrior goddess. And here we have February 27, the moon exactly conjunct Venus. So this is the second gate. In shamanic astrology, we think of the Inanna descending into the underworld, meeting with the moon 7 times, and these different gates that she goes through. This is the second gate. So the third eye chakra as what a mass of planets. So there's a lot of emotional heightening, who's gonna get the goods, and I think this could be real trouble. Will there be actual diplomacy used, or will it be force and more bullying? Anybody else want to venture an opinion about that?
Well, let me just talk a little bit about the reality on the ground and what might be going on, and that there should be something going on very much behind the scenes. The South Node just entered Scorpio, which of course deals with secrets, because surface, Russia starting to invade Ukraine doesn't make much sense. You mentioned the Nord Stream gas pipeline, and just very briefly, Russia has lots of natural gas, which it exports to Europe. And there are a large number of natural gas pipelines that go across Ukraine, and also other routes across Eastern European countries that are now NATO countries. So there's been much discussion over the years about how Europe is dependent on Russia for gas, but it's a double-sided coin because Russia really needs the money that it gets from selling all this gas. So as a way around this, all these political things, Russia proposed to build a gas pipeline that goes through the North Sea all the way around the north part of Europe and down into Germany, where it can be distributed to Central Europe. And that's the Nord Stream gas pipeline. So various political commentators said, well, that still leaves Europe dependent on Russia. But it also means Russia is now even more dependent on getting the cash from Europe. So if they're going to invade Ukraine, and all the Western politicians led by Biden have said, oh, if you invade Ukraine, we're going to just totally shut down the Nord Stream gas pipeline. You'll never get a cent out of that, after having spent tens of billions of dollars in several years on constructing this huge 1,000-mile long undersea pipeline across the North Sea, and, you know, very difficult, stormy weather conditions and all that. So why would Russia just cut off its nose to spite its face, so to speak, after they put all this stuff in there? So it seems to me that Russia is like threatening to invade Ukraine for some very hidden ulterior motive. It's not that they just want to go to war. They're trying to play a game of chess, because why would they cut off all their income of selling natural gas to Europe? You know, it doesn't make sense. There's got to be some secret behind the scenes conniving. Anyway.
Well, there is this bullying, or this posturing. We've got two giants that are posturing over trying to get what they want. Russia would like NATO to back off and not be right on its border. They'd like the U.S. and NATO to quit putting military on its border, is another thing. But there does seem to be quite a bit of posturing going on between these two giants, as to, you know, each wanting their own way. Somebody else, do we have anybody else who wants to weigh in on the astrology of this period? What's going on here? We can pull up some other charts if anybody wants.
Well, if I can complicate things, yes. Gail.
Sure, sure.
There are 3 superpowers that are involved in this story.
Oh yeah.
Because essentially what is happening, well, actually 4. There's the European Union, and then there is Russia, and the United States, of course, and China. And this is a, you know, there is, as Frank pointed out, there's a lot going on that is secrecy under the table, behind the scenes, because the leaders, Putin and the leader of China, have met, and they have an agreement, an understanding that were the United States to get involved in a war with Russia and Ukraine, then China will invade Taiwan, because, you know, the United States, they believe, could not fight a war on either on 2 fronts at this time. In fact, there are many geopolitical military experts that say the United States could not win a war on 1 front, let alone 2. And so how much of this is like, yeah, I'm going to posture, and, you know, Biden posturing and bluffing, and how much of it is like, be careful, you know, there's a saying, it's like, don't poke the bear when you're talking about Russia. And also when we look at Putin, he's a Scorpio. The thing about Scorpios don't invade, but if you step on their territory, you're in big trouble. So I just wanted to throw that in the mix. But I also wanted to say something earlier in reference to what Jane was saying. What's going on in Canada is an extraordinarily moving at a heart level. It's unprecedented, the generosity of people to each other. In other words, just to give you one example, somebody decides that they're going to spend their own money to spend to buy 500 or 500 hamburgers one day and 1,000 hamburgers the other, and just give it away for nothing. There's just an incredible amount of love and sharing that's going on here. At the same time, in contrast, an incredible amount of literal coldness and brutality, because it's possible that Europeans are going to freeze while these politicians are playing games.
So here we have a full moon coming up. In the 28th degree of Leo Aquarius, right on the US moon. That's an interesting thing, a full moon accentuating the 28th degree of Leo and Aquarius. Anybody use Sabian symbol?
Oh, you know I do, Gail. But the quicker this is the sun is on the tree felled and sawed for winter use, and the opposite degree is birds on limb. So just imagine a tree being cut down, and all the birds, of course, are going to fly away. And so in terms of what's going on in Canada, it's like, okay, we're going to cut off their supply and make them fly away. And, so, and of course, that's in terms of that picture, but in terms of other wherever this is occurring in someone else's life, it's sort of, a similar kind of issue could be adapted to one's own chart.
I mean, that kind of idea could be, applied both to what's going on in the convoy in Canada and the US and over to what's going on in the EU, because Europe is really hard up for energy and gas, and they stand to not be able to heat their homes in Europe if they can't get this resolved as to where they're getting the gas, and they don't want to pay more to the US for getting their gas. There again is that Venus and Mars. They don't want to pay $2 or $3 more a unit for the gas that they need when they can get it from Russia. So a lot's going on in this full moon, and that's really interesting that the Aquarius 28, a tree felled and sawed to ensure a supply of wood for the winter, and the full moon opposing that. Yes, good stuff. Many little birds chirping on a limb of a large tree. Anybody else want to say anything about these Sabian symbol degrees? Raise your hand or just unmute yourself. Tal, have you got anything you'd like to add to that? I see you're not muted, so maybe you'd like to say something.
Oh, no, I'm just taking it all in and knowing that there are sometimes I just cannot get involved with so much of the negativity, just following the money. If we follow the money, we will follow
the money.
Yep. And I want to thank you all for tonight.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say, Tal. So thank you. That follow the money kind of idea. There was other topics that we could be talking about. I don't know. Does anybody notice the fact that all planets are direct right now? Does anybody notice how that affects them?
Yeah,
yes, Kathleen.
Time. The time is moving. Before with the retrogrades, it seemed like the day was much longer for me. Now, like within 2 hours, seems like goodbye. The time's moving much faster for my brain, whatever's going on there. I wanted to mention, I don't know if anybody else did, because I had to get off for a few minutes. Did anybody mention about Richard Tarnas, that he made a documentary? It's called The Changing of the Gods.
The Changing of the Gods, Amanda Pua and the Astrology Hub. But there's lots. I've been getting lots of emails about it from a variety of it seems like it's time to really introduce the idea to the world that astrology works, and they're trying to go about it. Richard Tarnas is going to put behind this series, or I guess there's people in his sphere that decided it was time to put together a series of based on his book, Cosmos and Psyche.
Well, I think looking at the astrology, talking about Pluto and all that other stuff, this, besides Uranus, this has a lot of, how do you say, awakening for people now. Because even though it's been around for thousands of years, it was always poo-pooed. And hopefully the way the documentary is going to show the cycles from past times and that about the different planets, your phones will be all ringing off the hooks. Because if people get it, then, you know, it's going to be like an aha moment for them. They never thought about it in that, you know, like they always thought about it like, you know, predictions and, you know, woo-woo and all those words they used. So, so I think it's talk about transformation. That's a major transformation in the world of metaphysics, astrology, all of that. And who knows who else is flying around out there that might show up too yet in the outer space. So very interesting times. Look
Definitely.
at the and it's not the money, honey, it's the power. Because money is just an exchange for power. That's all it is. And that's all it is. I mean, look at Amazon. It's power. That's all it is. They couldn't spend the money in a life, this lifetime or 20 more billion lifetimes. It's all the power. That's where I look at it. Not only the dollars and cents. So that's the story. Okay.
Well, that Pluto is the power. There's the symbol of power and will, and
it represents money in a sense of exchange, but it's the power that people want. It's not the money. It's I want, hold all the gas. I want. It's ego, all ego power, and that's what's
money and sex.
Say that. Who is it? Who is that?
Power, money, and sex.
Oh, that's. I mean, you have to look. Look where your Pluto is. If that's the first thing that comes to your mind about Pluto, because it's a very deep planet, very, very.
Yeah, but it is about sex, drugs, and power, and
yeah, in the real world, in this world, but in the Pluto underworld, it's something else altogether. That's what I'm saying.
And the resources. It's about the resources that are the hidden resources.
Yes. Yeah.
Scorpio.
And secrets, things people don't talk about. That's the big one. That's where the transformation is going to come through. Major. So keep your diaries going, ladies and gentlemen.
So Rick Tarnas, his Cosmos and Psyche was a lot about of course, these outer planets, the Pluto square Uranus, when that he was looking, his book looks forward to that major square that happened throughout 2012 to 2014 or something, that square that happens about 7 times. Now we have Saturn square Uranus for a whole year. It won't finish up until October. Lots of things going on. We could use the Jupiter Neptune conjunction for positive or for good or for ill. Anybody want to talk to that? Tally, would you like to speak to what you think about that Jupiter Neptune conjunction?
I think I'm going to pass right now.
I think it could be used very positively. I think what's his name? Maurice Fernandez is going to speak to that. We had Dale was talking about this in December, and the different ways we might use that. Dale, you want to say anything more about, have you gotten any more ideas about the Jupiter coming up to Neptune?
Well, I think this is ultimately a time of a spiritual movement emerging, and basically very Christ-like in terms of, compassion, consideration. We're all in this thing together. in the chart I use for the U.S., this is occurring in the 6th house. So it's that is the house of, as we know, of labor. So it is, you know, all the workers are like, look, we're all in this thing together. And then also, it's also the house of health, and everybody dealing with the health issue in you know, in its multifaceted illness, the treatment of illness, the healthcare providers, and so forth. And I think that there are, just to see what's going on in Canada, it's extraordinarily moving. As soon as Jupiter got out of Saturn ruled Aquarius and Capricorn, where it's been for the last 2 years, there's just this sense of joy and happiness, and people, you know, hugging each other and thanking each other. And it's just a very beautiful, inspiring dynamic. But it's in contrast to the Saturn in Aquarius. Both of Jupiter's, you know, strongly in its own element, one of its own elements in Pisces, either in Pisces or Sag. And Saturn is strongest in Aquarius, its own, you know, again, rules Capricorn and Aquarius. And so there is this, you know, total control, heartless, cruel, you know, powers that be, not wanting to give up their power, no matter where in the world it is, what political party or any of that stuff. And just the kind of humanity of kindness and love and caring and so forth that is going on. So I think it's a time for people to basically choose. It's like, oh, well, you know, we can't do anything, the powers that be, we need to have order and control, or kind of a spiritual movement, but full of chaos. I mean, part of what this is people will say, well, I don't care about anything other than I want to make sure that the powers that be, you know, get my goods delivered from Amazon. You know, in terms of another totalitarian regime, people like Mussolini, because he made the trains run on time. And I think this is a time for all of us as individuals and collectively to, what do you really want out of society? Do you want, you know, people to get along and care about each other, or is it just all about power and things working, you know, in an order?
Well, the giants are duking it out, but us ants down here are going to be helping each other to survive. And seeing more of a spiritual, more spiritual movement, and this series that they're offering, the changing of the gods. I mean, this could be a part of this, the awareness of more awareness of the spiritual realms, the celestial realms, of as above, so below. And as we like to say in shamanic astrology, as within, so without. As above, so below. Okay. As we started this meeting, we had Jupiter and Neptune on either side of the descendant. Okay. And any other topic, something anybody else would like to bring to the table, to the discussion? We have some more time. So we can talk about eclipses that have impacted your life. There's another, I mean, we've, in looking at the eclipse paths over the US, real direct eclipses happening across the US in a short period of time, really. But how about in your life? I had an eclipse on my solar return in 2004. I got another one coming up in 2023. Oh boy. It's interesting. We, you know, as astrologers, it behooves us to take the idea of something being negative and show how it can be positive. Would anybody like to speak to that? Our use of language to open up a wider spectrum of possibilities relative to any transit. I mean, eclipses can be part of this because in the past, the eclipses were seen by people as they were very afraid of it, that all of a sudden the light of the sun was taken away by a lunar eclipse. I mean, by a solar eclipse or the lunar eclipse. It would be very, you had a very bright full moon and all of a sudden it was so dark. So in the past, they might have had a negative connotation. How are you using, what would you like to say about eclipses or any transits that you could use more language around that would open up the possibilities for what the effect might be? We've talked quite a bit about the Pluto return, but and we can't really, predictions are very dicey. To go to any area where you're going to predict something exactly, astrology has gotten a bad rap for that. But we can see the possibilities within any cycles that are coming up. Carolyn,
Yeah.
please take it away.
So speaking of eclipses, I have the lunar eclipse on my birthday this year on May 15th. So I'm bracing myself a little bit for that.
Okay.
And then I'm also a little concerned about the eclipse on November 8th. That's on the midterm election day. That's going to be, I think Mercury's also, is it conjunct? There's a bunch of stuff going on that day. I can't tell you off the top of my head, but I know it's happening, I think it's 6 a.m. that morning, November 8th, 2022. Let me just find if I can pull it up. But anyway, yeah, I'm a little worried about my personal life, lunar eclipse on my birthday, and then about 6 months later, more of the political ramifications.
When is that eclipse in November 8th? Do you know? I could look it
I
up.
think it's, okay, let me see if I can find it. Hang on.
Like I've probably got it right here. It is. Here it is. I've got it.
Yeah,
It happens. It'd be 6:02 on the East Coast.
Yeah, 6:02 a.m. I think,
3:02 on the
right?
Pacific.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6:02 on the East Coast.
Oops, I got it here. So, not to, let's see, oops. Oops. Hang on 1 second. And isn't it conjunct Mercury? Well, the sun is conjunct Mercury, yeah. And then,
So there we have the chart. This is for Washington, DC.
and isn't it
Washington,
also opposite Uranus? So there might be
yeah,
some.
the moon is conjunct Uranus.
Oh yeah, sorry.
And,
and then the sun is conjunct Mercury, opposite Uranus and the moon. And what else?
So you have you're a May birthday. You have a
I've got a lot going on. I've got right now Pluto and Mercury trining my Mercury. I've got Mercury, Sun, ascendant, all, and my Sun, so 23, 26, 28 degrees Taurus. So I've got all that lined up. And then my North Node is in Taurus. It's 6 degrees. So that'll be, so I've got a, yeah. So, but anyway, I was just looking ahead to these things with a little bit of trepidation, I've got to say.
I know, that's what we do. We look ahead to these. I'm feeling trepidation about that one in October of 23.
Right. You know, I've got an elderly mother, and I always worry that, you know, lunar eclipse, that always worries me a little bit with that too. So, and an elderly mother-in-law, very elderly mother-in-law. So anyways, and then just looking ahead at Go ahead.
I know, I mean, this is what I'm speaking about, this idea that we look ahead and we wonder what something like this will bring to us.
Sure. Exactly. Exactly. So,
But we could certainly look at Washington and know that's going to be a really difficult day.
yeah, I know. And probably full of surprises, maybe full of surprises, could be.
Hmm.
And I looked at Trump's and Biden's charts, and I couldn't say either way. You know, there wasn't really like a, you know, could go either way kind of thing. It seemed to me, and I was just a cursory look at their chart. So, but it was, I don't know. Trump's not running for anything, but obviously he's representing the Republican Party right now. So it sort of feels like another election in some ways, another presidential election, as well as a you know, obviously congressional.
Well,
Very
it seems like we have the people in revolt.
Right,
The people
right.
by the moon in revolt with Uranus, and yeah, they're pretty fed up with the powers that be running their life. Yeah.
Right. I know. It's just it's kind of, yeah, who knows? And a lot could happen. Hopefully a lot will happen between now and then in terms of the investigation. I mean, I'm giving my own opinion here completely, but I hope that they're uncovering as much as they can between now and then, the truth coming out. Maybe that Scorpio South node will dig out some of that in the next 9 months. I'm hopeful. Anyways, I know Kathleen was saying that things seem to be speeding up. For me, it feels like things are at a slog right now. I'm waiting for that Venus maybe to get out of shadow, my chart ruler, hopefully. You know, on March 6th, I think, is finally completing that retrograde cycle, but feels to me like everything's taking so long to get any movement in my own life and also in politically and otherwise. So I feel the opposite. I don't feel like everything's in direct motion quite yet. I'm trying, but I've also got Saturn in my 10th house right now. Feels like my career is sort of stuck too. So anyway, that's just me. I don't mean to go on more than my share.
Oh. Yeah, on this chart, of course, we have that Saturn square that full moon.
Yeah.
It's kind of at the icy, kind of entrenched Saturn. Anybody else want to say anything about this this full moon? I could bring up the other side of it, the May eclipse too. Anybody want to talk about this eclipse?
Yeah, I'd like to share the Sabian symbol
Yeah,
for the
great. Go ahead.
eclipse. And this is the November eclipse. And it is a symbolic battle between swords, the disciples of might, and torches, the disciples of enlightenment. So, you know, extreme polarity. And what I like to point out is we all have our own, most of us have our own political predisposition. But when we're dealing with an election for the whole country, one side could see, oh, we are the forces of enlightenment and you're the forces of might. So, you know, either side could see it as we're the good guys, you're the bad guys.
Either
and
side.
And they just the fixed square that you pointed out here, Gail, is that there's incredible pressure here all the way around. But with any T-cross, it learned this from Tracy Marks years ago, it's like a drawn arrow, and where does the energy end up going? It goes to the part of the square that's left out. So when we're looking at, you know, around 14, 15, 16 degrees of Leo. So it'd be interesting if there's anybody in the political picture who is there and what the heck is going to happen to them at, you know, around this time. Because part of this is there even going to be an election? You know, I mean, that's one part of playing power games. If we go, well, we think that we might lose, well, maybe we're going to cancel the elections. Well, there's just so much tension in this chart. So I just wanted to put that out. And the other thing I wanted to say quickly is just about the difference between solar eclipses and lunar eclipses as I see them. Solar eclipses are significant beginnings and endings, But the way I see a lunar eclipse is wherever the moon is in any given individual's chart or in a country's chart, that's the person who is seen as being a lunatic. Now, are they, do they lose it and all, or are they just in touch with the emotional reality of the situation and they're expressing emotions that should be expressed? But that's what I see whenever I look at a lunar eclipse.
That's good. Say that again about the difference you see in the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse. Could you
Yeah, the
repeat
solar
that?
eclipse is the significant beginning and ending because it's a very dramatic new moon. So for instance, the solar eclipse of December of 2019 was very near to Fauci's sun sign and also Trudeau's sun sign. So it kind of, accentuated that they're sort of like in the spotlight. But these are both, probably two of the most controversial people in the world right now, in their respective countries, or, in some ways, even outside of their countries. And so in some ways, it's like, is this the good guy, or is this somebody who is just too much of themselves? But lunar eclipses I see is more like the one who's on the solar side. A lot of times this is like male-female dynamics. The female, if it's associated with the moon and she's seen as the lunatic, what she's really doing is expressing human feelings that the male is in denial about. So she's almost like acting out her feelings plus, the feelings that the male should be like, aren't you upset? You should be upset, something like that.
Yeah. And this one's definitely going to be upset. It's going to be upset because of value if we can imagine the inflation keeps going this year. And the people are really upset. The feminine is really upset about the loss of value, and things costing so much and whatnot.
If I may, Gail, also, it's interesting to me that Venus is with the sun opposite to the moon. So perhaps a power struggle between two very different women.
Well, this is Venus in the underworld, and so it takes on Pluto. Add Pluto. This is power, struggling for power. So, I mean, I think a real power struggle here. Yes, Maureen has asked to speak. Maureen?
And I'm a novice for those of you that I don't know or that don't know me. Biden is a Scorpio, correct? And this chart is Washington, D.C. So my question is, is it his birth chart, or is this his progress chart? Because if we're looking at the election, how do we look at either Biden or anybody if they're in Washington as opposed to whatever would be there? Does that make any sense to anybody?
Sure.
Like I was born in Chicago, my chart, yet I'm living in Arizona.
Well, we could certainly look at
by casting a chart in a different location, you'll get planets in different houses and different ascendant and midheaven, but the positions of the planets in terms of the signs they're in, the degrees and minutes, would be the same. So, and I don't know that it would be dramatically different with Biden, because he was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania, which is, I don't know, 50 or 75 miles as the crow flies from Washington, D.C. So it'd be a little bit different, but basically you could, look at his chart.
very, very similar. going to be very
Yeah.
similar. Biden's chart is very similar, whether it's in Pennsylvania or Washington, D.C. Anyway, this is Biden's chart in the inner wheel, and the transits for November 8. We could, of course, look at any transits you wanted to look at. But he does have, I mean, we've got Pluto is opposing his Jupiter. And he has that moon in Taurus. I don't know. Any other charts you'd like to see? Maureen, did you want to? Is this enough for Biden, or did you want to see any other chart?
No, I was just curious to see how the two would match up, and they seem to match up pretty well. Yeah. And I do have another question. I was born on a day that Pluto was stopped. Does that make any difference? I mean, is Pluto going to stop again soon or something? Or,
Well,
what would that
You
even
mean when it's going direct, or from retrograde to direct, or direct to retrograde?
when my chart has been read, they've told me that it was the day that it was a stopped Pluto.
That's when it goes direct or retrograde.
Probably the word you need is stationary.
That's
Okay.
When it transitions from direct to retrograde. Excuse me. And that gives added emphasis to the planet in your chart. It gives it sort of like more, I don't know if I should use the word power, but significance.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, how about any other comments, any other questions, any other chart you want to look at? I mean, this was great for tonight. We had this nice trine between Mars, Venus, and Uranus. It's just a little past, but when we at 7:30 we had the ascendant exactly fitting into this. That's okay. Anybody? Well, I think we've had a good discussion. It's been fun talking with all of you. It's almost like we were in the same room. Okay, I can't keep any more words anybody wants to say. Come on, out with it.
Just thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. This was a good
Thank
idea.
you.
Thank you to all of you.
Thank you.
So
Yes,
we're gonna,
Good.
we can give all ourselves a hand because we
Yes.
all spoke up and said interesting things.
yeah,
We're not applauding for a lecturer, we're applauding for ourselves.
There you go.
exactly. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
everybody.
We can officially end it here. I guess the people who linger will just
Yes.
chat.
Oh,
Okay, thank you. See you tomorrow, maybe. Hope to see you all tomorrow. Hello, Margot.
Hi, I'm still here.